Hey everyone, so in this video we're looking at the factors that are going to affect the terms of trade, and of course I alluded to them in the last video. The two factors are the commodity prices and production costs in trading partners. So before we get into it, it's probably important to note the commodity prices are going to impact the export price index, and the production costs overseas are going to impact the import price index. There are heaps of others. If you think about the way the terms of trade is measured as export prices over import prices, I'm just going to draw X over M, even though this is not the right way to do it. Anything that impacts the price of exports or anything that impacts the price of imports will affect the terms of trade. But we're not going to go into that in this video. So we're going to stick to commodity prices and production costs. So I might have alluded to this before, but the main driver of the terms of trade in Australia is commodity prices. It pretty much determines where the terms of trade goes. And if you look over our history, that can be traced back when we look at the terms of trade. And that's because commodity prices fluctuate. The price of gas, the price of iron ore, the price of oil and coal, these things fluctuate daily and they can be quite volatile. The reason for this is the demand and supply for these things come from all over the world, and obviously things change globally. So for example, when China reopened their economy post-COVID, there was a big spike in demand for iron ore. Or when there was a collapse in a Brazilian iron ore mine, which was a big supplier of iron ore, that drove up the price of iron ore. So we've got to think the main driver is commodity prices, and the reason for that is they're determined in world markets. So let's have a look at some examples. The first one is that if China emerges from their big lockdowns and suddenly they're demanding more coal from Australia, Australia is a big supplier of coal to world markets, then we would say that there is an increase in demand in the market for coal. That would increase the price of coal and therefore increase the terms of trade, all other things being equal, because coal is a big export for Australia. Another example would be if there is, and this is a couple of years ago now, but there was tragically a collapse of a Brazilian iron ore mine called Vale, and it reduced the supply of iron ore to world markets. And you can draw this using your microeconomics knowledge. The supply curve shifts to the left, drives up the price of iron ore, and again increases the export price index and the terms of trade. Finally, if we looked at the costs of production in our trading partners, so places like China, Vietnam, Bangladesh, India, places that we import things from, America, what we need to think about is if their cost of production goes up, they're going to increase the price of their goods and services, and therefore it's going to increase the import price index, and vice versa. If there was a decrease in cost of production, that would decrease prices and decrease the import price index. So I want you to think about these little structures here. If there's an increase in cost of production, that will increase the prices paid for imports by Australians and deteriorate the terms of trade. It's a bad thing for us to pay more for our imports. And vice versa. If there's a decrease in cost of production, they become more efficient and they're able to sell at a lower price. That's good for Australia. Prices decrease and the terms of trade will increase. Now, just one final thing before I go. I don't think I've ever said this, but if there's an improvement and like an increase in the terms of trade, we always call that a favorable movement. That's favorable, which is good for Australia, and vice versa. If there's a decrease in the terms of trade, we always call that an unfavorable movement, and that means it's bad for Australia. And we'll talk about why in the next video. Bye for now.